Paul Allen, the voice of the Minnesota Vikings, also hosts 9 to noon on K-Fan. Paul, thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule. Obviously, you got a busy week at Canterbury as well, so appreciate your time. Let's start off with obviously the biggest news in the Fargo Moorhead area is Carson Wentz. I know we talked about
Yeah,
it a couple years ago when the before Sam Darnold signed, like what's the possibility of Carson Wentz coming in now?
right.
A year later, we're here talking about him not only signing, but he's going to start on Sunday for the Minnesota Vikings. Just talk about, from start to finish, how all this all came together in your eyes and just what's kind of the expectation for Sunday.
Good chatting with you, Ryan, as always. Quite honestly, myself and a lot of others, when the Vikings signed Carson 3 weeks ago, were quite surprised. A quarterback of that caliber, who's willing to accept a backup role 9 years into his career was available. And I think the past performance equity is merited there when, you've won a fair amount of games, but every single season he's had more touchdowns than interceptions. And he cut. So now what's next is he was just with the Andy Reid group. Whoa, that's good. Before that, Sean McVay. That was good. So it seems Carson had maybe myriad offers, but God had him wait and wait, not knowing the Vikings job would open. But then when it did, he was super excited to come here. Grew up a Vikings fan, watching and or listening to Vikings games in the Bismarck area. And he's going to start at least against Cincinnati. And it's going to be a pedal to the metal situation with the memorization and all that. But from the brief time I've gotten to know Carson, he seems like a fantastic human being.
Yeah, obviously it's been a couple of years now since he's played in a meaningful football game, couple of week 18 games. But I mean, when he has played, we go back to his Philadelphia days. He was on an MVP run before he got hurt. And then, Commanders didn't play too bad there either. Just, I feel like the expectation for some fans is, could this be another kind of Sam Darnold type thing where a guy who's able to sling it kind of takes over the
Yeah.
offense and runs with it?
Well, I'm not going to say takes over the offense if you mean long term. But I get the comparison. And yeah, I was thinking of making it 9 to noon K-Fan today. But the big difference here is, I mean, the answer is yes, it could happen. And with that said, hopefully, if it does happen and Carson has to play a bunch of games, the last game being the biggest game in the regular season doesn't end up being a flop like the previous example. But with Sam's smart. Carson is smart. Sam had great pedigree, and was raised enough to be a top 5 pick in the NFL in the draft, and Carson was too. But nevertheless, Sam had the entire off season of organized team activities, mini camp, training camp. I mean, he had a lot more than Carson has. Carson's skill set is one that is coveted, and it's good. And you mentioned the Commanders and the Eagles, but all just 4 years ago, which really isn't that long when you're like 30 some odd years of age. 2021 for the Indianapolis Colts, his center was Ryan Kelly, who's the current Viking center. His right guard, Will Fries, current Viking right guard. And I think he went for 27 touchdowns and just 7 picks. So we're looking at, X amount of fill-in starts ago. He was kind of lights out. So that's the expectation for how many ever games he has to play.
Yeah, I think that year they were a game away from making the playoffs too before they
Hmm.
kind of faltered. I think it was in Jacksonville. Just you mentioned a couple of the old line guys. The injury list for the Vikings right now is substantial. A lot of key guys, including a couple of linemen. Is there any concern with that heading into Sunday? Obviously, the Vikings signed a couple of guys just on Tuesday when we're recording this, or running back Cam Akers. Is that a surprise to anyone? I don't think so. And then Desmond Ritter to kind of add to the quarterback room, but just especially with the O line, is the injuries kind of a concern with a new quarterback behind center now?
I mean, the answer is yes, but it's difficult to get loud about the Vikings injuries, and it's kind of a loser's lament when the team you're playing just lost Joe Burrow and lost him definitely until right around the end of the season, where McCarthy could come back at any time. But the answer still is yes. Aaron Jones with the hamstring. You got a nice 1-2 running back punch. Ryan Kelly with the concussions. And I just learned today, I think this may be his fourth or maybe his fifth. So that's a significant situation. Then defensively, Kevin O'Connell said on my radio show Tuesday that Van Ginkel will practice this week. So the belief is he's going to play. Hopefully Hitman can get back, Jeff Okuda, and Christian Darrisaw is yet to play. So it's the laundry list is voluminous. They found a way to win a game despite injuries during the game and before the game. And, I've watched the entire Falcons game back now because Kevin O'Connell at his Monday press conference said, it's in getting beat, and he was respectful. It's not like anything's being done that's consistently beating us, whether it's lack of execution, effort on certain plays, or whatever. I think that's frustrating him right now. But nevertheless, still new components jumping into the mix. And I just think it's tough to get things going full speed when you have so many new components. That's why if they could just get some of them back, and Carson being the veteran he is, he's not going to go out of body with the free will and be like, well, you know what, shoot, I might get 2 or 3 tries here. Might as well just go out there and sling it. He's going to follow the plan, and I can't see them losing 2 consecutive home games. Now, the last 2 against Cincinnati, the Bengals have walked off on the Vikings twice. Evan McPherson, the Florida kicker, has walked off on the team twice in overtime. In 2021, first game of the year at Cincinnati, this kicker, Evan McPherson, was making his debut. He was lights out, but that was also the debut of Jamar Chase. And he went for like 5 catches, 100 and change, and a touchdown. So ever since these guys came into the league, I've been their fans from afar. Very, very gifted. And Jake Browning's 4-3 as a starter for them. Beat the Vikings in 2023 as a starter, went for 300 and change. So nothing's easy, man, as you know. But I just can't see the Vikings losing 2 straight home games.
I don't think anyone expected week 3 is going to be Jake Browning versus Carson Wentz, but here we are.
Right.
You talk about Carson, but JJ McCarthy, 8 quarters of football. I think a lot of the consensus is only one good quarter really in there. I mean, do you chalk it up to just young and learning the offense still, or just what do you kind of chalk up the struggles to early on for him?
It's a combo platter where I'm watching these games back from an all 22 standpoint, the offensive plays more critically, and it's taking longer than in previous years to memorize numbers. And the reason why is I just want to make sure that when I watch these passes back, and there aren't that many, that you just don't have guys running free, and he's on a 7-step drop, bouncing around, looking around, and he's missing like Jefferson wide open. Last game, protection broke down badly, and if he had had just another second, he swings it left first half to Aaron Jones, and Justin Jefferson was blocking the heck out of somebody. Jones is going to score. So there are some plays like that in there where, I believe he would have closed on him if the protection just had been a little better. He's been sacked 9 times in 2 games. So, if you extrapolate that over 17, which we're not going to do now because he's out, that would have pushed the NFL record for sacks in a season set by David Carr. So that obviously, that kind of answers your question right there.
Yeah, certainly not ideal. Paul, I'm sure we'll talk again before the end of the season, but just bigger picture, just what's kind of the outlook in your eyes for the next, at least the next few weeks for this Vikings team? Obviously, JJ McCarthy, Carson Wentz, who knows, Max Brosner could get a look if Carson struggles. But just what's kind of your outlook, especially with the injuries for the next few weeks for Minnesota?
Yeah, I'm with the way the left tackle situation has worked out the first 2, and then some penalties that they took last game that I just didn't see coming, false starts and things, and the fact that McCarthy's been sacked 9 times in 2 games. I get it. I'm surprised they're not 2-0. I had them 5-0 into the bye against Philly, with Wentz and Van Ginkel returning. Hargrave and Allen, hopefully pissed off that they're big money free agents, and Javon and Jonathan are both off to good starts. But I think they know they should have won that last game too, and got pushed around a little bit in the running game, which generally perturbs defensive linemen into the next game, hopefully the rest of the year. So yeah, I think they're going to win the next 3 games. I think they're better than Cincinnati without Burrow at US Bank Stadium. I think over the totality of a game against Tomlin and A-Rod, I think they can win that game, but that has some 50-50 to it. and they should beat Cleveland. So it's basically get to the bye, figure out what the quarterback deal is with McCarthy's ankle, what Aaron Jones' hamstring situation is like, get Addison back in Dublin, and just get healthy and start playing cohesively. With McCarthy, back to what you said before, the lights out he went in that one quarter where it's easy for everybody to say, hey, that was fantastic. That offsets a lot of the L's because he high percentage wise won that game for the Vikings after the defense held sway for a very long time. But throwing the ball to the other team the way he has and with the pick six, obviously those can't happen. So raising kids, take it from a dad. And this would be a surrogate situation with a professional football player who I adore. Whether it's real kids or quarterbacks, frequently it's not easy. And there are ups and downs and a lot of prideful moments when the proverbial light goes on, and some arms around the shoulder and the arm for a 22-year-old when they don't. And the good thing is Kevin O'Connell coaches the Minnesota Vikings, and maybe next to Leslie Frazier, I have not come across a coach in my quarter century calling games for the team that works with man when man is struggling better than Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, I agree. Paul, last question for you. Adam Thielen, Detroit Lakes native, just an hour away from Fargo. Just him coming back obviously was a big story. Maybe the first few weeks, not a ton of production. You kind of just chalk that up to, just not being utilized too often and kind of just accepting his role now as this kind of 3-4, maybe when Addison comes back. Or what's kind of your thoughts on Thielen?
Well, he had a 2-point conversion in Chicago. He had a bad drop and it ate at him after the game. And he had 2 big receptions last game. And McCarthy really wasn't on target. It's like not everything was up here for all the receivers. So Adam had to get a little acrobatic to bring in a big one for 20. But the exultation and exuberation Adam and his family have for being back here, well, that overall, as the overarcher, trumps everything, and Adam knows it. Then you get into the games, and Adam is a perfectionist, and he still has a lot of juice off the line of scrimmage, and still can really, really play the game at a high level. It's just been wonky for pass catchers, in the first 2 games because it's all new to McCarthy, and the protection hasn't been great. I mean, shoot, TJ Hawkinson hasn't been a catching factor at all. Jefferson has 3 catches in each game, granted a touchdown. Jones, they swing it to him through the nice wheel route to him. So we'll see what changes with Wentz in there, who obviously has markedly more experience than JJ, and we'll see where the ball goes with Carson. But Adam is when Addison comes back, and if things settle down offensively, and you have Jefferson, Addison, Thielen, Hawkinson, hopefully Jones with Mason, and better protection, then it should be exactly where everybody thinks it should be.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure people in this area are definitely loving Carson and Adam Thielen both back on the Minnesota Vikings. So, Paul, thanks so much for joining us as always. I know I watched your X's and O's with Kevin O'Connell. He was right. The flow is all right now. B Flow, I'm sure, is also doing well. I love that little snippet there. But yeah, thanks again for your time.
Appreciate you, brother. Zoom in here anytime.